Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're jumping into a super old and really famous story called Breshit. Now that's a Hebrew word and it means in the beginning. Pretty cool, right? It's all about how everything we see, the world, the animals, and us, got started. I mean, have you ever just looked up at the sky and wondered, how did all of this get here? It's one of the biggest questions you can ask. Well, this story has its own really interesting answer. So you ready to dive in? Let's do it. Okay, so our story starts at the very, very beginning. We're talking before there was anything at all. The Bible tells us that God created the world in a super organized step-by-step way, kind of like following an awesome recipe for the universe. And guess what? It all happened in 7 days. On day 1, boom, light. On day 2, God made the sky and separated it from the water. Day 3, dry land and all sorts of plants started popping up. Then came day 4, with the sun, the moon, and all the stars. On day 5, it was time for fish to fill the oceans and birds to fill the sky. Then on day 6, all the land animals were created, and so were the very first people. After all that incredible work, on day 7, God took a rest. Now that day 6 was really, really special, because that's when the very first people were made. Their names were Adam and Eve. And the story says they were created in God's image, which means they were made to be friends with God and to take care of this amazing new world. So where did Adam and Eve live? Well, God didn't just create them and say, good luck. No way. He planted a beautiful, perfect home just for them. It was called the Garden of Eden. Seriously, just try to imagine this. A garden where you never had to worry about being hungry because there was delicious food growing everywhere. It was totally safe, totally beautiful, just perfect. Sounds pretty amazing, doesn't it? So right in the middle of this awesome garden were 2 super special trees. One was the tree of life, and they were totally allowed to eat its fruit. But the other one, that was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that was the one single tree God told them they couldn't eat from. So let's get this straight. They had this incredible garden, they could do pretty much anything they wanted, and there was just one rule. Just one. Don't eat from that one tree. That sounds pretty simple, right? But you know how stories go. Things were about to take a turn. A new character showed up in the garden, and this one was definitely not there to help. The story says a very sneaky snake, a serpent, slithered up and started talking to Eve. This snake was tricky. It started twisting God's words, trying to make Eve doubt that one simple rule. It told her, hey, if you eat that fruit, you'll be super smart, just like God. And Eve listened to the snake. She looked at the fruit and she took a bite. Then she gave some to Adam and he ate it too. And just like that, they had broken the one and only rule they were given. Everything was about to change. Because they chose not to listen, there were some big consequences. The serpent was punished, and Adam and Eve were punished too. They had to leave the Garden of Eden, their perfect home. And from that day on, life was going to be a whole lot harder. But the story doesn't end there. After leaving the garden, Adam and Eve started a family. But sadly, the trouble wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. They had 2 sons, Cain and Abel. Cain was a farmer. He worked in the fields growing things. And his brother Abel was a shepherd. He took care of the sheep. So one day, both brothers decided to bring a gift, an offering, to God. But their gifts were really different. Abel brought the very best he had, the first and finest lamb from his flock. Cain, well, he brought some of his crops. But the story tells us it wasn't his best stuff. It was more of an afterthought. God was really pleased with Abel's gift because you could tell it came from the heart. But he wasn't pleased with Cain's. And this made Cain so angry and jealous. The story even says God warned him, saying something like, hey, Cain, that anger is like a monster crouching at your door. You need to be the boss of it before it becomes the boss of you. Have you ever felt that way? That feeling of being super mad or jealous? It's a really powerful feeling, isn't it? It can make you want to do things you know you shouldn't. And right here in the story, Cain had to make a choice about what to do with those big, ugly feelings. And sadly, Cain didn't listen. He let his anger be the boss. One day, when he and Abel were out in the fields, Cain's anger boiled over, and he attacked and killed his own brother. It was a terrible, awful tragedy that brought even more sadness into the world. Wow. So after all this sadness, getting kicked out of the garden, one brother hurting another, you might think the story is over and that all hope is lost. But it's not. The story tells us that God still had a plan to make things right again. Remember that sneaky snake from the beginning? Well, right after he tricked Eve, God made a promise. He said that one day, someone from Eve's family line would come and completely defeat the serpent, fixing everything that went wrong. The Bible says this person is Yeshua, or Jesus, who would live a perfect life and show everyone how to find their way back to God. So, what's the big takeaway from this whole story for us today? Well, it shows us that our choices matter a lot. It's like our actions show what tree we're eating from. Are we choosing kindness and obedience? Or are we letting things like anger and jealousy take over? The story encourages us to be the boss of our feelings and to let our words be sweet and encouraging, not hurtful. And that leaves us with a really big question to think about. If the garden was this perfect place of goodness and peace, how can our choices today, the way we treat our family, our friends, the words we use, how can all that help make our little part of the world a bit more like that beautiful garden? It's definitely something to think about.